Good morning. Welcome to another daily reading. This is Leviticus 14 and Acts 15. I read from the Institute for Scripture Research, the ISR, because it takes a direct translation from Hebrew to English, Greek to English, and Aramaic to English. Yah is the Elohim of the heavens and the earth, the first and the last and the only, and he's an extremely jealous El. He's so jealous that he doesn't even want the names of idols or mighty ones to come to our lips. And Yah is short for Yod He Vav He Yahuah Yah. It's like saying Dan, Daniel, Daniel with an E. What is the difference and does matters when people say that Phil, Bob, Sam, and Aaron are the same name when no, they're not, and no one in their right mind would ever believe that. And only a fool would believe that a hammer could force its creator to do anything, and there was no letter J in the Hebrew, Greek, or Aramaic text, because the letter J is about 600 years old, while the son of Elohim's name, Yahshua, when the son of Elohim, Yahshua, sweat blood, was brutally murdered on a stake, spent 3 days in Sha'ul in darkness and gnashing of teeth and fire, and was resurrected on the third day for the sins of all of humanity over 2,000 years ago. By the way, that's about a 1400 year window. You'd have to be a fool to believe that his name was, which is Greek for Hail Zeus, Jesus, Christos, the Greek idol, Christos, Christ. Lord is in every Hebrew translation, and since it's a Hebrew word, you don't have to go to any other language, is Baal, which is another name for Satan. So when you say praise the Lord, you're saying praise Satan. And God, there is only one God, and that is the pagan idol of fortune. Yahuah is not a god, he's the creator of the heavens and the earth. Don't insult me with your pathetic idol worship. That's all it is. It's pathetic idol worship. People who refuse to research the word for themselves, it's pathetic idol worship. Research the word for yourself. Prove it. Quit listening to, your fake pastor who sits up there and only tells you what you want to hear that just tickles your ears. Anyone who believes the Torah has been done away with is a fool. Nowhere in the word does it say Torah has been done away with. Unless, of course, you don't understand what the Torah that is being talked about is. Then, of course, you can just jump on the bandwagon. Oh, he says the law has been done away with. You're an idiot. He's talking about the Pharisees' Torah, not Yah's Torah. Two very different things. But if you don't know that, and you don't want to know that, then to you it'll seem like the law has been done away with. Which it's not. Like I just said, simple research proves it wrong. Not one yod or one tittle shall by any means pass from the Torah till all be done. How is that meaning the Torah has been done away with? That's in Matthew too. You'd have to be a stupid fool to believe that the Torah has been done away with. Fakey flakes, greasy grace, that's what they are. Anyways, Leviticus 14. Excuse me. And Yahuah spoke to Moshe, Mosheh, saying, This shall be the Torah of the leper for the day of his cleansing. He shall be brought to the priest, and the priest shall go out of the camp, and the priest shall look and see if the leprosy is healed in the leper. Then the priest shall command, and he shall take for him who is to be cleansed 2 live and clean birds. So the clean birds just means they're without blemish. They're perfect. I was reading in Deuteronomy and I was a little confused because they were like, oh, you can eat clean and unclean alike. But what they're talking about, if you keep reading, of course, is that it's talking about... say your sheep has a blemish. Well, that's unclean, and you cannot bring it before Yahuah as a sacrifice. But you can eat it. So you can eat unclean and clean alike, because you can eat an animal that is not perfect, but is still on the clean list. But it's just not clean for Yahuah for a sacrifice, so it's unclean. But people could just take that, they could literally just take that chapter and just be like, oh, see? I don't have to read anymore. I'm a stupid fool. All I have to do is think it in my head and it's there. Read the word for yourself. And I was confused, but I kept reading because I wanted to know the truth, and boom, Yah put it right there in my hands. If you earnestly want to know the truth, you'll find it. Okay, this shall be the Torah of the leper for the day of his cleansing. He shall be brought to the priest, and the priest shall go out of the camp, and the priest shall look and see if the leprosy is healed in the leper. Then the priest shall command, and he shall take for him who is to be cleansed 2 live and clean birds, and cedar wood, and scarlet, and hyssop. I believe hyssop is like this syrupy stuff, but don't quote me on that. Just, I haven't looked up what hyssop is. That's another word I keep forgetting to look up. And the priest shall command, and he shall slay one of the birds in an earthen vessel over running water. Let him take the live bird and the cedar wood and the scarlet and the hyssop, and dip them and the live bird in the blood of the bird that was slain over the running water. And he shall sprinkle it 7 times on him who is to be cleansed from the leprosy, and shall pronounce him clean, and shall let the live bird loose in the open field. That must have been extremely traumatizing for that bird. And he who is to be cleansed shall wash his garments, and shall shave off all his hair, and wash himself in water, and shall be clean. Then after that he comes into the camp, but shall stay outside his tent 7 days. And on the 7th day it shall be that he shaves all the hair off his head, and his beard, and his eyebrows, even all his hair he shaves off. All his hair he shaves off. And he shall wash his garments, and wash his body in water, and shall be clean. And on the 8th day he takes 2 male lambs, perfect ones, and 1 ewe lamb a year old, a perfect one, and 3/10 of an ephah, E with a half a check mark, PHAH, it's a measurement, obviously, of fine flour mixed with oil as a grain offering, and 1 log of oil. A log of oil. How do you make a log of oil? It's a good question. And the priest who is cleansing shall present the man who is to be cleansed with these offerings before Yahuah at the door of the tent of appointment, which is Moses' tent, Moshe. And the priest shall take 1 male lamb, and bring it as a guilt offering, and the log of oil, and wave them as a wave offering before Yahuah. And he shall slay the lamb in the place where he slays the sin offering and the ascending offering, in a set-apart place. For the guilt offering, like the sin offering, belongs to the priest. It is most set apart. Excuse me. And the priest shall take some of the blood of the guilt offering, and the priest shall put it on the tip of the right ear of him who is to be cleansed, and on the thumb of his right hand, and on the big toe of his right foot. And the priest shall take some of the log of oil, and pour it into the palm of his own left hand. And the priest shall dip his right finger in the oil that is in his left hand, and shall and shall sprinkle some of the oil with his finger 7 times before Yahuah. And of the rest of the oil in his hand the priest puts some on the tip of the right ear of him who is to be cleansed, and on the right thumb of his right hand, and on the big toe of his right foot, on the blood of the guilt offering. And the rest of the oil that is in the priest's hand he puts on the head of him who is to be cleansed, and the priest shall make atonement for him before Yahuah. And the priest shall make the sin offering, and make atonement for him who is to be cleansed from his uncleanness. Then afterwards he slays the ascending offering, and the priest shall offer the ascending offering and the grain offering on the slaughter place, and the priest shall make atonement for him, and he shall be clean. But if he is poor and is unable to afford it, then he shall take 1 male lamb as a guilt offering to be shaved, to make atonement for him, and 1/10 of an ephah of fine flour mixed with oil as a grain offering, and a log of oil. and 2 turtle doves or 2 young pigeons, such as he is able to afford, and one shall be a sin offering, and the other an ascending offering. And he shall bring them to the priest on the 8th day for his cleansing, to be to the door of the tent of appointment before Yahuah. And the priest shall take the lamb of the guilt offering and the log of oil, and the priest shall wave them as a wave offering before Yahuah. And he shall slay the lamb of the guilt offering, and the priest shall take some of the blood of the guilt offering and put it on the tip of the right ear of him who is to be cleansed, and on the thumb of his right hand, and on the big toe of his right foot. Then the priest pours some of the oil into the palm of his own left hand, and the priest shall sprinkle with his right finger some of the oil that is in his left hand 7 times before Yahuah. And the priest shall put some of the oil that is in his hand on the tip of the right ear of him who is to be cleansed, and on the thumb of the right hand, and on the big toe of his right foot, on the place of the blood of the guilt offering. And the rest of the oil that is in the priest's hand he puts on the head of him who is to be cleansed, to make atonement for him before Yahuah. And he shall prepare one of the turtle doves or young pigeons, such as he is able to afford, that which he is able to afford, the one as a sin offering, and the other as an ascending offering with the grain offering. Excuse me. Excuse me. And the priest shall make atonement for him who is to be cleansed before Yahuah. This is the Torah for one who had an infection of leprosy, who is unable to afford for his cleansing. And Yahuah spoke to Moshe and to Aaron, Aaron, saying, when you come into the land of Canaan, Kena', which I am giving you as a possession, and I put a plague of leprosy in a house in the land of your possession, then shall the one who owns the house come and inform the priest, saying, it seems to me that there is some plague in the house. And the priest shall command, and they shall empty the house before the priest goes in to look at the plague, so that all that is in the house is not made unclean. And after that the priest goes in to look at the house, and he shall look at the plague, and see if the plague is on the walls of the house with sunken places, greenish or reddish, so mold. In my mind, I'm thinking mold, which appears to be deep in the wall. Then the priest shall go out of the house to the door of the house and shut up the house 7 days. And the priest shall come again on the 7th day and look and see if the plague has spread on the walls of the house. Then the priest shall command, and they shall remove the stones with the plague in them, and they shall throw them outside the city into an unclean place, while he lets the house be scraped inside all around. And the dust that they scrape off they shall pour out in an unclean place outside the city. I'd definitely wear a mask for that. Although, did they have masks? You just take a cloth and throw it over your face. Mask. That's what people do nowadays anyways. Can't tell me that's not a appropriate decision when, half the population is wearing a cloth over their face right now. Oh, I have to wear a mask, so I'm just gonna absorb to the system and just wear this pathetic piece of garbage on my face that does no good and only harm. Also, I'm not gonna wear gloves, so if I am actually sick, I'm gonna smear it around with my hands. But hey, we're helping, right? And then to add insult to injury, Fossey says that, or in his emails, he clearly states which people who knew better, who had a brain and researched this beforehand, knew better. We were right. And now it's undeniable that we were right, that wearing a mask is garbage, is useless. It does more harm than good. It does no good. In fact, he says the only way that it actually does something is if someone physically were to sneeze or cough on your face, it would stop those big drops from getting in. That's it. Stop killing yourself. Stop bowing to the beast just because you think it's a good idea, because some chemical company tells you so. Grow up. Start being an adult. You wanted to be treated like one, act like one. And they shall take other stones and put them in the place of those stones, and take other mortar and plaster. So they had mortar and plaster. That's pretty cool. And take other mortar and plaster the house, and if the plague comes back and breaks out in the house after he has removed the stones, after he has scraped the house, and after it is plastered, then the priest shall come and look and see if the plague has spread in the house. It is an active leprosy in the house, it is unclean, and he shall break down the house, its stones and its timber, and all the plaster of the house, and he shall bring them outside the city to an unclean place. And he who goes into the house all the days while it is shut up becomes unclean until evening. So anyone working on it, scraping it up, is unclean until evening. And he who lies down in the house has to wash his garments, and he who eats in the house has to wash his garments. Okay, I'm sorry. If, in my mind, if it was mold, I wouldn't be eating in there, and nor would I be laying down there. No, thank you. I'll lay down outside. Have all the windows wide open. Have that oxygen going through. So it's not just this stale mess of in front of you. And he who lies down in the house has to wash his garments, and he who eats in the house has to wash his garments. However, if the priest indeed comes in and looks at it and sees that the plague has not spread in the house after the house was plastered, then the priest shall pronounce the house clean, because the plague is healed. Excuse me. And to cleanse the house he shall take 2 birds, and cedar wood, and scarlet, and hyssop, and he shall slay one of the birds in an earthen vessel over running water. I don't know if there's another type of vessel, earthen vessel. Over running water. That was another cool thing, is they had I believe it's called a geyser. You know, things that shoot water up. So they'd have constant flow of running water. Interestingly enough, it was right where they do their sacrifices. Perfect. And to cleanse the house he shall take 2 birds, and cedar wood, and scarlet, and hyssop, and he shall slay one of the birds in an earthen vessel over running water. And he shall take the cedar wood, and the hyssop, and the scarlet, and the live bird, and dip them in the blood of the slain bird, and in the running water, and shall sprinkle the house 7 times. He shall thus cleanse the house with the blood of the bird, and the running water, and the live bird, and with the cedar wood, and with the hyssop, and with the scarlet. And he shall let the live bird loose outside the city in the open field, and shall make atonement for the house, and it shall be clean. This is the Torah for any infection of leprosy and eruption, and for leprosy of a garment and of a house, and for a swelling, and for a scab, and for a bright spot, to teach when it is unclean and when it is clean. This is the Torah of leprosy. Acts 15. Excuse me. And certain men came down from Yehuda, Y-E-H-U-D with a line underneath of it, A-H, and were teaching the brothers. Yehuda is the Pharisees, the lawmakers. And were teaching the brothers, unless you are circumcised according to the practice of Moshe, you are unable to be saved. Yeah, there's a reason why it says circumcision of your heart in the Torah as well. Just gonna point that out there. I read it yesterday in Deuteronomy. Circumcision of the heart. But these people believe you must be circumcised in the flesh, even though that was a law for Israel, who, by the way, abolished Yahuah's Torah. So by trying to force it upon people now is just hypocrisy. So when Sha'ul, S-H-A'-U-L, and Barnabas, B-A-R-N-A-B with a line underneath of it, A, had no small dissension, So when Sha'ul and Barnabas had no small dissension and dispute with them, they arranged for Sha'ul and Barnabas and certain others of them to go up to Jerusalem, Y-E-R-U-S-H-A-L-A-Y-I-M, to the emissaries and elders about this question. So being sent on their way by the assembly, they passed through Phoenicia, P-H-O-E-N-I-C-I-A, and Shomeron, S-H-O-M-E-R-O-N, relating the conversion of the nations, relating the conversion of the nations, and they were causing great joy to all the brothers. And having arrived in Jerusalem, they were received by the assembly and the emissaries and the elders, and they reported all that Elohim had done with them. And some of the believers who belonged to the sect of the Pharisees rose up, saying, "It is necessary to circumcise them and to command them to keep the Torah of Moshe." Without the Torah of the Pharisees, of course, but they don't believe that. They believe it's all the Torah of Moshe. Every command they come up with, they just call it the Torah of Moshe. Which is false. Do not add to the word, or the plagues of the word will be added to you. Do not take away from the word, or your name will be taken out of the book of life. It's pretty clear. I mean, it says it in the Torah so many times, do not add to my word and do not take away from it. This whole book. And the emissaries and elders came together to look into this matter, and when there had been much dispute, Kêpha, K-E with a half a check mark, P-H-A, rose up and said to them, "Men, brothers, you know that a good while ago Elohim chose among us that by my mouth the nations should hear the word of the good news and believe." What is the good news? Well, the good news is the Messiah, but it's also the Torah and the prophets and Psalms and Proverbs. Excuse me, but I just want to point out they only had their walk with Messiah as part of the good news. You know, there wasn't a book. The second writings didn't exist. So people are like, oh, you know, they followed the word. Yeah, the word was the Torah, the prophets, Psalms, and Proverbs. And the genealogies and all that. And Elohim, who knows the heart, bore witness to them by giving them the set-apart spirit, as also to us, and made no distinction between us and them, cleansing their hearts by belief. Cleansing their hearts by belief, also circumcision of the heart, as the Torah says. Now then, why do you try Elohim by putting a yoke on the neck of the taught ones, which neither our fathers nor we were able to bear? But through the favor of the Master, Yahshua Messiah, we trust to be saved in the same way as they, by following the Torah. And all the crowd was silent and were listening to Barnabas and Sha'ul declaring how many miracles and wonders Elohim did among the nations through them. And after they were silent, Jacob, which is James, Y-A'-A-Q-O-B with a line underneath of it, Jacob, answered, saying, Men, brothers, listen to me. Shimon, Shimon, has declared how Elohim first visited the nations to take out of them a people for his name. And the words of the prophets, and the words of the prophets agree with this, as it has been written, After this I shall return and rebuild the booth of David, which is David, Dawid with a line underneath of it, which has fallen down, and I shall rebuild its ruins, and I shall set it up, so that the remnant of mankind shall seek Yahuah, even all the nations on whom my name has been called, says Yahuah, who is doing all this, who has made this known from of old. Who has made this known from of old. Therefore I judge that we should not trouble those from among the nations who are turning to Elohim, but that we write to them to abstain from the defilements of idols, and from whoring, and from what is strangled, and from blood. For from ancient generations Moshe has in every city those proclaiming him, being read in the congregations every Sabbath, still keeping the Sabbath clearly. Then it seemed good to the emissaries and elders with all the assembly to send chosen men from among them to Antioch, Antioch, with Sha'ul and Barnabas, Yehuda being called Barsabba, Yehuda being called Barsabba, Barsabba, and Silas, Silas, leading men among the brothers, having written by their hand this, the emissaries and the elders and the brothers, to the brothers who are of the nations in Antioch and Suria, Suria, and Kilikai, Kilikai, Kilikia, greetings, since we have heard that some who went out from us have troubled you with words, unsettling your lives, to whom we gave no command. It seemed good to us, having become of one mind, to send chosen men to you with our beloved Barnabas and Sha'ul, men who have given up their lives for the name of our Master Yahshua Messiah. We have therefore sent Yehuda and Silas, who are also confirming this by word of mouth, for it seemed good to the set-apart spirit and to us to lay upon you no greater burden than these necessities. So abolishing the Torah of the Pharisees while uplifting the Torah of Yahuah. That you abstain from what is offered to idols and blood and what is strangled and whoring. If you keep yourselves from these, you shall do well. Be strong. Obviously, there's more to it. They therefore being sent off, went to Antioch, and having gathered the crowd together, they delivered the letter, and having read it, they rejoiced over its encouragement. And Yehuda and Silas, being themselves also prophets, encouraged the brothers with many words and strengthened them. And having spent some time, they were sent back in peace from the brothers to the emissaries. But it seemed good to Silas to remain, and Sha'ul and Barnabas continued in Antioch, teaching and bringing with many others also the good news, the word of Yahuah. Bam! What's the good news? The word of Yahuah. What's the word of Yahuah? Yahuah's Torah. So obviously they wouldn't have been abolishing Yahuah's Torah if they're right here teaching it. It makes no sense. It's a contradiction. It's a contradiction to what you believe. The good news, the word of Yahuah. Exclamation mark. Word of Yahuah. So obviously when they sent this letter, they sent it knowing full well that they had already sent the Torah and taught the Torah to them. And that they didn't include circumcision of the body, but they did include circumcision of the heart, like the Torah says in Deuteronomy. And after some days, Sha'ul said to Barnabas, "Let us now go back and visit our brothers in every city where we proclaimed the word of Yahuah and see how they are." And Barnabas proposed to take with them Yohanan, Yoh with a dot Anan, which is John, called Marcus, which is Mark, so John was called Mark, Marqos. But Sha'ul thought it not fit to take with them the one who withdrew from them in Pamphylia, Pamphulia, and had not gone with them to the work. A sharp feeling therefore came to be, so that they parted from one another. And so Barnabas took Marcus and sailed to Cyprus, Cyprus, and Sha'ul chose Silas and went off, being committed by the brothers to the favor of Elohim, and he went through Syria and Cilicia, strengthening the assemblies. Only a fool would believe that the Torah has been done away with. Only a fool would believe that. The word of Yahuah. They didn't have the second writings at the time. So what was the word of Yahuah? Well, it was the Torah, the prophets, the Psalms, the Proverbs. The genealogies. It wasn't just this second writings like these greasy gracers believe. It didn't exist at the time. I hear it wasn't written down until 300 years after. So, 300 years is a long time to not have it, to claim they had it. Greasy grace. Your ideology is literally just shattered into a bunch of pieces once you find out that the second half wasn't written until well after they all died. Greasy grace just shattered away. Obviously, works only is consistently being shattered away with everything I say, but you must have both. If you do not have both, you're in the same boat and you're both sinking. Greasy grace and works only, same boat. Sinking, fast. No life raft in those. None. You better learn to do right by Yahuah. Stop calling him by these idle names. It's insulting to him. It's insulting to me, although I don't matter. Just him. Do what is right, and what is right in his eyes, do not follow idols. That's a clear command. I don't know how many times I have to say, do not follow idols, before people are like, oh, just do away with it. It's okay. We can call him by whatever we want. Being set apart, that doesn't matter anymore. Yahuah is a liar, right? And we're the crazy ones for trying so hard, and he's a liar, right? Totally. Obviously, I'm being sarcastic. I'm not sure. If you can't tell I'm being sarcastic, there's something wrong with you. Excuse me. Have a good day. Hope you enjoy this daily reading. It's pretty harsh, but it's pretty factual. You need both the Torah and the Messiah in order to be saved. There is no other way. Also, Messiah is Greek, not Hebrew. It was already translated to Greek as Messiah. So anyone who's like, Christ is just the Greek of Messiah. I'm like, no. Messiah is Greek. You don't need to go Greek. That doesn't make any sense. Why don't you go Greek English? Or just not? Call him Messiah. It's just Greek. Anyways, have a good day.